there's a reason why Allah still allowed these beautiful masajids to still stand hundreds of years later, right? It's just that constant reflection and reminder that even when that non-believer was there, it moved her to tears because she saw it was deeper. Like the building was speaking to her.
One of the people that I take inspiration from is Johnny Ive, and he was doing a fireside chat or like a coffee side chat recently at a conference. And he was talking about the experience of, so he designed this cable sort of packaging, and he was talking about the experience of just opening that up and how somebody feels when they're going through that experience of just unwrapping this cable thing. And what he was reflecting on was like, what he draws satisfaction from is that the person who's using that or the person that's experiencing that can tell that somebody has cared about this, And I love, how he phrases this. It's like, you can sense carelessness, right? Whether it's like, some product you've experienced or just your interaction with someone, like whatever it is, but you can sense when something has been done with carelessness. And so because you can do that, you can also sense when there's care that's been put into it. Do things for yourself. And really what I mean by yourself is like, do things for your soul. Do things that, just like excite you, are for a higher purpose, and let that be it.
Hey, Assalamu alaikum. Hope everyone is doing well, inshallah. Welcome back to the next episode of the Impact Lab podcast. Today's guest is someone that I've been wanting to bring onto the podcast for a while now, not just for what he's building, but for how he's building. Umar Shahzad is a designer, a thinker, a husband, and a father, and someone who's been quietly shaping some of the most meaningful digital experiences in the Muslim space. He's currently serving as the head of design at LaunchGood, where he's helping reimagine how Muslims experience giving, storytelling, and community online. His fingerprints are, mashallah, on some of the most thoughtful and emotionally resonant campaigns in the internet space today. He's someone who thinks deeply about how things feel, how they serve, and how we show up with Ihsan, even in the pixels. Whether he's designing a landing page for Ramadan or rethinking how a user engages with a cause, Umar's process is, mashallah, soaked in sincerity and ihsan. In the world that often glorifies noise, Umar is building with stillness. In a landscape where everyone's racing, he's asking, how can I build this better? And how can I build it with ihsan? Umar, welcome to the podcast.
Assalamu alaikum, Sajjad. Thank you so much for having me.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. It's an honor to have you, Umar. It's been wanting to have this conversation. Mashallah, pick your brains, learn more about you, your experience, and all the amazing work that you're doing, not just at LaunchGood, but just in general. Mashallah.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored. Alhamdulillah. Thank you for that intro and for having me.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Well, Umar, I know we have a lot to get through, so I don't want to. Let's go straight into it, inshallah. So, Umar, let's start by taking it back. What drew you first into this world of design?
I always say, like, I'm a designer at heart, and I think I've always been a designer and somebody who's been drawn to creativity since I was very little. I think it's something that, subhanAllah, if I look back and I, ask my parents and I talk to my mom, and something that I think runs in my family as well. My mom tells me stories of her grandfather who used to do calligraphy with two hands, and my uncles are mashallah very talented artists. My sister is mashallah very talented calligrapher. Perhaps it's something in the genes or in the blood, but it's something that I've always been drawn to. And as far back as I can remember, just a love for drawing and just the visual arts. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And mashallah, it's so beautiful to hear that it's in the family, with your grandfather being a calligrapher. This is Arabic calligraphy, Urdu calligraphy.
I think it was Arabic calligraphy. It's something that I wish I knew more about him and his craft, but it's Arabic calligraphy because my mom tells me that he used to write calligraphy in the masajid, and he used to do that with both hands. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And where was this? In Pakistan?
This is in Pakistan. Yeah. So my parents are from Pakistan. I was just reflecting on the journey of my life that brought me to where I am today. And if I think back, we recently did an activity with our LaunchGood team where we reflected on our river of life and what really brought us to where we are today. And, as with many others, but when I look back at my journey, it actually extends before I was born. And my parents immigrated to Canada in the 70s. Even prior to that, their parents immigrated to Pakistan during the partition. My dad's family is from Amritsar. They migrated over, and it's just subhanallah, all these things that these factors and like these variables that lined up and that brought me to where I am today. They migrated over for a better life. My dad was born shortly after the partition. Mashallah, huge family of brothers and sisters, and he was the second oldest. And he reflects back on his journey and his life of helping provide for his family, for his brothers, his sisters. He would study under like the street lamps, and he, that's how he got his education. And he worked really hard, and eventually my parents migrated over to Canada when after they got married. And I reflect back on that, and because of the sacrifices that they made and the foundation that they put in place, that's why I could do what I can do. And that's why, with their support, I've been able to pursue something that, is not a traditional, doctor, engineering, lawyer, like those fields. It's something in the creative profession.
Yeah,
and it's like my story is one of many.
Yeah, so I think actually, Umar, that's a beautiful point that you're bringing up too, because I actually had a very similar reflection on that. And this was about 3 years ago. We took a nice long trip as a family in the summertime. This is right during when they were right off of school in July. And alhamdulillah, we spent, I think it was like 6 weeks abroad, 7 weeks. We were in Karachi for about 3 weeks, and then we were a few days in Istanbul. And then from there, we as a family went to the Haramain. And when I was actually in Pakistan, this was my kids' probably first time, at least their first time as older, so as like early teenagers, late toddlers, but like older, like they can comprehend what's happening. And actually it was like, as you're driving through some of the streets in Karachi, it's like there's so much economical disparity that you see, right? Like you're driving on a road and then you just see these like huts on one side and then these huge multi-million-dollar commercial buildings and skyscrapers on one side. And I was just reflecting on that too. It's like, alhamdulillah, we're here in the West, yes, we have our struggles, but the decision our parents made at that time to migrate or to look for a better economic future, look for a better future, like it's almost like a decision, like a split decision. Like if that decision didn't happen, I could very well be here. Right. Yeah. And it was actually very beautiful, like for our kids, like as they get older, they see like, just like you said, this is the river of life. This is where you came from. And similar story, like before my grandparents, actually not even it was actually my grandparents that migrated. But my father was the first son that was born in Pakistan. All the older siblings are born in India. So it's like the partition also happened like right around that time where he was the first one born in Pakistan. So it's like you just reflect back on, well, imagine that didn't happen, that split decision, and they decided to stay in India. Like, where would we be?
Yeah.
Right. And before that, where would you be? Before that, where would you be? And it's just a very beautiful reflection that, the fact that we're here, where you and I are having this podcast together, you with your beautiful, rich history, and me with my, inshallah, rich history. Right. It's just very beautiful to see how Allah puts things together.
Yeah. Yeah. SubhanAllah. I think, the early generations that came and the struggles that they went through and the foundations really that they put in place, it's something that now we are able to build on. We like, I hear stories from, again, my parents' generation when they immigrated here, and access to institutions and
Yeah,
halal, butchers and the mosques and all these places. They had to establish that,
100%, sure.
and they had a vision in mind. They had a purpose. They had a goal. They came here, for the betterment of their families and their children, and they really planted those deep roots and built these institutions and built this foundation that we can now not only enjoy, but we can build on top of. And
Exactly.
we're talking about my sort of foray into design, and I remember like when I was in design school. This is just my experience, but in my design school, like there weren't that many Muslims, or there weren't that many people of similar backgrounds. And now I look at it, almost 20 years later, and we have tech startups and like, just videographers and like designers and people going into these creative fields. And I think that that's a reflection because, again, those generations were able to build the foundations. Now we don't have to worry about that. We have to maintain it. We have to take care of it. We have to build on top of it. But it's also allowed us to go into a lot more of these different, non-traditional sort of fields. But to your point about, seeing the, seeing the disparity, and that could have been us, right? Like we could have been living in those huts, or
Absolutely.
the way I reflect on that is that there's a huge amana or responsibility on us now, being in the shoes that we're in, being like given the blessings that we've been given.
Absolutely.
What do we do with that?
Yeah, no, excellent point. Excellent point. And it's very, very important. Like as as you and I experience these things in life, and inshallah, as our kids see it, like just like you said, there's a huge amana. Allah chose you to be here and not in that hut. He's given you the tools, he's given you the skill set, he's given you the suhbah, the companionship of so many amazing people for all of us that we're surrounded with. Now it's how do you use this to, inshallah, create that bigger impact around the world?
Exactly.
It's a very, very beautiful reflection. Umar, I want to kind of take it back to, just as you were kind of entering into the design space with the education, like just like you mentioned, at that time there weren't many Muslims around. Like even just reflecting back, even to like when I was in high school, I remember like an entire high school, there was probably like 4 Muslims, not even in my class. Like I'm talking about the entire high school, 9, 10, 11, 12. So like growing up, we didn't have that, the Muslim companionships per se, or someone that was like-minded, who understood the concept of Ihsan, doing things, because this is also an act of worship. But like as you're kind of going through that in your education and navigating a lot of those things, anything that you did to kind of keep you grounded, or like keeping it in essence that we don't kind of get lost in what the world is talking about from what we might be pushing towards from a creative standpoint, or hey, this is the hottest thing, we're going to run with this approach, but something that kept you grounded as you were through your educational journey, or even in early design life.
When I was younger and I was in high school, I had a rediscovering of my faith and just like a spiritual reawakening. And I think at that age, there were certain things that I started to develop as values, and it kind of guided me with what I did in my career, and just, I mean, in life in general, but with when it comes to design and when it comes to the type of work that I could be doing, I think it really did help shape and guide that. But it really was that, at that formative sort of early, teenage year, getting that exposure, getting the company of people who were either like-minded, or I love actually, Peter Gould has this like-hearted saying, this like-hearted group, you might not be like-minded, but you're like-hearted. And just having that company and growing up in an environment where, you were kind of safeguarded from the sort of negative pulls of society. I think first of all, like that helped guard me, and it really helped shape uh, my career, my career and my life journey, because I was able to merge my passion for design, my interest in my faith, and my I was able to merge that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And just like you said, the beautiful thing is the power of having like-hearted people and the importance of it. Like as you're going through any chapter in life, whether that's your high school years, your college years, you're in the professional development space, and you're in your professional career, just having like-hearted individuals through every chapter of your life, because they challenge you, number one, but then they keep you in check. Like Sajjad, you shouldn't have said that. That's not how we do things,
Yeah.
right? Or when you're interacting with, whether it might be at a masjid, or professional space, career space, educational space, it's just having that suhbah is so important, right? And I probably wouldn't be half the man I am. Not that I'm anything, but just having those peers in my life that kept me in check. Right. And it goes both ways. It's not just like that teacher relationship, but it's like, no, you're friends together. You're companions, you're brothers, right? We're sisters. We're in this journey together. We're going to challenge ourselves. But at the end of the day, we want to be the best people that we are. Right. And it's selfish, but then also too, it's because we have to. This is what our deen tells us to do.
Yep.
This is very
you
beautiful.
are, you are with those who you love, right? In the hereafter. That's what the Prophet taught us. We're the reflection of, I forget who the author was, but I was reading this recently. You're the reflection of like your closest circle of like 5 friends. And it really does matter like what kind of company you keep, because like you said, they help keep you in check. They help, help nudge you or challenge you to being a better person. Even from like a professional standpoint, you're able to learn from them, get mentorship, get career development, even if it's somebody that's not necessarily in your line of field.
Absolutely. And it's a beautiful hadith that you mentioned. Inshallah, Umar, may all of us, you and I, and anyone who's listening or benefits from anything that we say, may we all be companions of the Prophet ﷺ in Jannat al-Firdaus, inshallah. Because that's the ultimate goal. That is the ultimate goal, inshallah. Umar, I just wanted to shift a little bit into, like, I know Islam plays a big factor in, our organizations, who we are as individuals, and everything that we do. It's, inshallah, it's the cornerstone of everything that we do. But it's also very interesting because we also have, especially you, from the design standpoint. And there's so many similarities that I see, when it comes to design, creating something with Ihsan and Islam. It's almost like they're not mutually exclusive. That oftentimes people say, oh, you're just doing arts. Arts are here and deen is here, right? But it's like there's this sweet middle ground that can coexist between each other. And just reflecting on that, like if you just go back to even our own architecture, like the way we built masajids, whether you're looking at the Ottoman time, all the beautiful masajids across the Turkey to Istanbul, but even more than that, like there's just in anything, like there was the way books were created, like you could sense that there was this level of ihsan that kind of went into it. And do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, again, being a designer at heart, like I'm always tying things back to design. Or I think one thing there is, for people who are new in either the design field or in any field, really go out and get that breadth of experience. Do typesetting, work with print in this digital age, like work with print, learn stuff about architecture and principles from there. And all that really helps inform, how you're going to approach your specific field. But yeah, so the question is, about Ihsan in our work and uh, just how people have approached it in the past.
Yeah, like any reflections that come to mind, come to heart about just like Islam and design, like
Yeah.
any reflections you have on that.
So a colleague of mine, good friend of mine, Omar Hamid, has a saying that I absolutely love. It's what comes from the heart is received by the heart. And he tells me
Mm.
the story of this one time he was in Istanbul with a colleague and they were in the Blue Mosque. And it's just, picture, you walk into the Blue Mosque, it's this grand, huge
Yes.
space that really just speaks to your soul. And they're looking at this tourist who perhaps may not have been Muslim, but she just moved to tears.
Mm.
And again, because it speaks to the soul, right?
Mm.
And his reflection was that, again, this structure, this building, this mosque was made with heart, and it was made with the remembrance of Allah and done with dhikr. And every brick that was placed, it was done with the remembrance of Allah. And now, all this time later, it still speaks to you. There was a level of ihsan in that work. A
Mm.
few years ago, our team was in Istanbul, separate occasion, but there's this one mosque there, and the local was giving us a tour, and he was telling us about the history of the mosque. And right next to the mosque is a hammam, a bathhouse.
Mhm.
And he was telling us a story that when they were constructing this, one of the workers, showed up that day, and he wasn't participating in the construction of the mosque. And so the foreman, or like the head person, asked him, why are you not working? And he said, I'm in a state of impurity, and I don't want to contribute this mosque while I'm in a state of impurity. So they paused the construction of the masjid, and they built that bathhouse next to it first, and then they resumed the construction of the masjid. And
So,
I think there's definitely a lot of I don't know if it's lessons, or how would I say this. I think intention is so important.
mm.
Like, why are you doing this? Who are you doing it for?
Yeah.
Like our faith teaches us that our actions are judged by their intentions. What purpose are we doing this for? As Muslims, ultimately, like, we're in this world to worship Allah, to work towards the hereafter, to uh, uh, live according to the guidelines that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has left us with, his example, his teachings.
That was great. That was beautiful. And I think too, for me, like Umar, is like there's a beauty in alignment. It's our deen and doing things with intention, doing things with excellence, doing things with ihsan. Whether it's something simple, or it may be perceived as simple as, oh, I'm just creating a flyer, or I'm creating a social media graphic for the organization that I'm volunteering or helping with. Though it may seem as something so mundane, right, or routine, but when you do it with ihsan and you do it with excellence, you do it with that intention, there's like this, just like you said, there's a heart to it,
Mhm.
right? And something grandeur is building a beautiful masjid, the ones we see in Turkey, to something small as like a print collateral, like having that intention there, doing it with sidq, doing it with ihsan, doing it with excellence. It goes so much more deeper,
Mhm.
right? And it creates that bigger impact. And I think, like, for us, it's, especially within the Islamic space of organizations, Islamic businesses, whether it might be fintech companies, humanitarian, just taking that lesson back. There's a reason why Allah still allowed these beautiful masajids to still stand, hundreds of years later, right? It's just that constant reflection and reminder that even when that non-believer was there, it moved her to tears because she saw it was deeper, Like the building was speaking to her.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And same way when we carry ourselves within our professional space, we're creating, we're designing, we're running organizations, we're figuring things out. Right. But as you go through that journey, you're doing it with intention. You're doing
Yeah.
it with a sense of purpose, a sense of
Yeah.
excellence.
Yeah. You mentioned something there, doing things and figuring them out as you go. And I want to touch on that for a moment because a few weeks back, we were at the Muslim Tech Fest in London, and there was like Ihsan kept coming up. And what does Ihsan mean in your work? And oftentimes it gets translated as excellence, and that definitely is true. Like doing the best you can. There's an element of Ihsan where you've never quite achieved it, so it's always what can you do better. But some great conversations happened in some of those sessions where Ihsan is also making the decisions that you need to make with the information you have at the time. And here I'm talking more maybe from a professional perspective, and how do we bring Ihsan into our work, because it's very easy, especially as a designer and a creative, very easy to get hung up on perfection and that pursuit, like, okay, it's not good enough. Well, it'll never be good enough. But part of Ihsan is also making that decision, knowing when it's in a state that it can be pushed out, so that you're able to put your best foot forward. You're able to put that work out there, again, without getting hung up on perfection.
And it's so hard.
It's hard. Yeah, it is.
Hard.
Yeah.
Because just as natural, I can just speak for myself. Like, I personally have a tendency, like, oh, it's not good enough. It's not there yet. I could do better, right? And then you're just stuck in this cycle where it's like, oh, we haven't pushed anything out because we're just caught in this perfection cycle.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
But
there's been a lot of times where I put work out there and then I realize, oh, there's a typo, or I've seen work from others and it's amazing, but then there's some
you find that little small, exactly.
and I think that's a beautiful reflection, because perfection is only for Allah, right? I think it's those little imperfections that, number one, make us human. It's even like in this age of AI and everything is just like it's technically perfect, and you can line things up, and but then that little error, that little touch of it tells that there's a human behind this.
Just on a side note, a friend of mine and I are working on this organization. Very interestingly, stumbled upon us, and not Sunan related, but just we're helping them out. And he by profession is a gun manufacturer. He makes pistols, but this guy's like on another level. Like, he's doing it with Ihsan. Like, he hand makes probably total of 500 guns a year.
Oh wow!
But the amount of time he puts into each one, he like spends weeks, like his team, they're spending weeks on each gun, and like countless hours, and like everything is done. Like, you see the level of Ihsan within it, right? And it's so interesting because like we see Ihsan from one lens that, oh, it must be religiously oriented. But it's like, this guy's making pistols. But you see the level of Ihsan that's even going into his craft.
Right.
And I think that kind of just drew us to him. Like, man, this guy's got an amazing story. He's like an artist, but he's also like this math genius. Like, he's like by numbers, but it's like, if there's like the slightest blemish or something that's imperfect, he's like, this is garbage. I can't put this out. I could never put my name on that. Right. It's just like so beautiful to see like it all come together. It's like, wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah. So we're talking about process and craft and perfection and that pursuit of perfection. And we were sitting with these brothers from Hasan bin Marlik in Istanbul. They built the İlahiyat Jami in Üsküdar, and they were telling us about number one, like, we were talking earlier about what comes from the heart is received by the heart, and they were talking to us about how do you build this this mosque that really, again, speaks to your soul. And, there's an element of appealing to your aql, your intellect, but there's also an element of speaking of, designing and speaking to your soul. And, everything from the heights and the proportions, and when you walk in, like, how do you feel, this expansive space. But one of the things that, they were telling us was about this perfection. And even though, perfection is something that, again, is really for Allah, and we're human, we won't be perfect. But this, in traditional arts and crafts, it was about perfecting the process, and about, trying to repeat the process over and over and over again. Like the calligrapher writing the alif, and they're doing that, thousands of times until they've gotten it as best as they can, and only then, can they move on to their next lesson. And it's something that I think, it's amazing with the tools that we have at our fingertips today. We can just prompt something into existence, and that's very interesting. It's cool, but there's something that I personally feel, especially in design schools, is perhaps not taught as much as it was before, but it was about the foundations and about perfecting, the principles, the elements, and getting like a really solid foundation on that. I'm constantly hiring, and I'm constantly looking at portfolios, and it becomes obvious very quickly who has that foundation and who doesn't. They've either spent the time learning, or trying to perfect that, and it does reflect in the work. And
it's so important. It's very, very important, because again, you can't build a house, you can't build a second story of the home, a third story to a home, if the foundation is weak. Right. And same concept goes into whatever skill set, whatever profession we're in. You have to have a strong foundation, because that strong foundation is only going to help you build more, stack your skills on top of that. Right. From a design standpoint, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, whatever it may be. Right. Know the foundations, and more beautifully, build that foundation with a sense of Ihsan and Sidq. Right. Because then the house is going to be even more beautiful. Right, as you're building that skyscraper, that penthouse is going to look much, much more beautiful. Inshallah. Umar, if I may, I wanted to shift gears a little bit to talking more about the work that you've been doing, mashallah, with LaunchGood. Because I feel it's very beautiful, and very, actually very beautiful that, you can kind of tie in that work of design with doing it with a sense of intention, doing it with a sense of ihsan, doing it with a sense of sidq, right? And to what LaunchGood mission is, right? And the vision of LaunchGood to be able to create that marketplace, a place where, people can come and fundraise for different things, whether it's a charity, humanitarian, tech, right? For-profit companies. Because again, we've seen everything happen on LaunchGood, right? From personal to corporate to nonprofit to humanitarian. It's very beautiful to see that, even from a LaunchGood standpoint, that, it's one of the few organizations, alhamdulillah, that I would say is keeping that level of design intact. And it's very beautiful to see it, mashallah, which you and the team are leading at LaunchGood. Can you walk me through a little bit of that what goes on behind the scenes? Like, how do you maintain that in such a fast-paced world? Right? Because the world is so fast-paced with social media and everything, but even with like an organization like LaunchGood, where there's, at any given time, there must be tens of thousands of active campaigns that are happening. You turn around, there's an emergency happening everywhere. Last week, 2 weeks ago, it was the floods in Pakistan, to what's happening in Gaza, to what's happening all around the world. Like, talk to us a little bit about that process.
The work that we do at LaunchGood, and really, I think what I would do is I would credit it to two things. Number one, it's the amazing people. I'm really blessed to work with people across different departments who really believe in the mission of LaunchGood. Our mission is to uplift the ummah. They really believe in that. They give it their all. That's one thing. The other thing is, I think the systems and the processes that they've developed and we've developed over time, that's allowed us to act as quickly as we can. When emergency situations happen, our team can spring into action. And again, for us, it's not about us. We're the connectors. We're trying to connect local organizations with local communities, scholars and influencers and different charities, and connecting them with the people that are powering that good. So they're the donors, or they're the contributors. We're really playing that role of the connector. Connecting these people who are doing great things. They're out there fundraising. They're out there, providing the relief, and we're able to connect them, with the donors, with the communities. So again, it's the systems that we've put in place. It's also this network. I know I said two things, but actually, this is probably a third thing that's helped us move as quickly as we can, or provide the kind of support to the community as quickly as we can. It is this network, this wider network of people who really believe in, what we're also about. We have this network of, call them ambassadors, call them influencers, call them just, loyal supporters, donors, customers. But they really believe in our mission as well. And so we're able to then connect them. We're able to leverage, their platforms to amplify the message. So that's probably what I would credit that to.
Beautiful, beautiful. And then Omar, I know, for example, running in any organization, having those systems and processes are very, very important. Building SOPs for different aspects of within the organization. But then from a creative side, design side, have you noticed, does that create a creative block? Or how do you kind of merge the two? Giving folks that creative space to create, while still maintaining those systems.
Yeah.
Because you guys obviously...
That's a great question. Sorry, what was the last part?
I said, because obviously you guys have figured it out, how to do that at scale.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we've figured it out. I think there's a lot that we're still figuring out as we go. And it's actually one of the beauties of an organization of our scale where, yes, we've been around for, I think, over 13 years now. We've been around for a long time. When I joined LaunchGood, we were about, I think, just a little over 20 people. Now we're a team of over 100 people across full-time contractors. But our mentality is still sort of a startup mentality. There's a lot that we're still trying to figure out, a lot that we're still, questioning. And I think that's part of a healthy organization, questioning what we're doing, challenging ourselves. Some of our greatest conversations are internal conversations are, I might present an idea and then, nobody else might challenge it. So somebody else will challenge it just for the sake of challenging it, so that, you're trying to poke holes into it, or you're trying to approach it from different angles. So I wouldn't say we've figured it all out. And again, that's a positive in my eyes. But to your question about, creativity and, leaving that room for creative thinking, this is actually, it was one of the drivers for why we wanted to get guidelines and design systems in place. It's so that we could get rid of, put those questions aside, ask them, work through them, and then put them aside, so that we're not spending time on, should this be this font size? Should it, be set up this way? Should it be these colors? What kind of language should we use? Let's document that all. Let's document all that. Let's put it aside. And now let's focus on, how does this experience make you feel? Is it connecting with people's emotions and their soul? And is it giving them that sort of aha moment, or, that, I love this? Is it eliciting that sort of reaction? And that's something that was intentional. Like we want to again have that documentation in place so that we could spend a lot of our design time and a lot of our together time tackling some of those kind of questions.
Yeah. It's very beautiful because this way, the systems and the creative is working together.
Mm-hmm.
It's not racing against each other, but you're utilizing the systems to be able to have that creative space, to think creatively, to think just like, and I wrote this down, how does this experience make you feel? And going back to those core questions, I think is very, very, very important.
That's a huge part of how I try to approach design at LaunchGood. How does it make people feel? I don't know if you're a big foodie. I'm not a foodie at the level of like being a food blogger, but I love to, I love a good, sit down restaurant meal.
Absolutely.
But you get that plate in front of you. You've ordered. Actually, before you even order, you might look at a photo and how it's presented. Like you could have a steak on a, sizzling skillet, or you could have it on like just a, plain plate, and you're already now starting to taste it and smell it, before you've even ordered it.
Absolutely.
And then it comes to you, and before you take that first bite, you're looking at it and how it's presented to you, and that smell and the aroma. Again, you're tasting it before you actually taste it, right? So that's a huge part of what I try to bring to LaunchGood is how does this make you feel? People do judge a book by its cover, regardless of you said don't judge a book by its cover, but people do judge a book by its cover. So we take a lot of inspiration from nature in the work that we do at LaunchGood, the design work. Our Ramadan is a huge part of our sort of identity and what we do at LaunchGood, and the entire color palette is inspired by the sunset, the color of the sunset, the purple gradient, and in the last 10 nights we get there, and it's again about the last 10 nights and the specialness of that. The twilight, Dhul Hijjah is another big season on LaunchGood, and our color palette is informed by the color of the sky, because the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah are about the best 10 days. So we really try to lean into nature. Our big thing is, especially for our donors, it's about growing your garden of good. Every good deed that you do, it's like you're planting a seed and you're watching that plant grow. And it's something that actually I'm really excited about. We're working on bringing better visualization to that, so you can track your donations and you can watch your garden grow. And we lean into, people who have used our platform in Ramadan and Dhul Hijjah, they're familiar with the leaves, to track that. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot that definitely that, we take inspiration from.
Yeah, just to add to that too, Chief, is like, just reflecting back on the nature side, and even in our tradition, in the Islamic tradition, like when you're reading the seerah and you're just reflecting on the moments of the Prophet ﷺ, or just all the Anbiya, like you just see this common theme of nature and how it plays such a big role. During the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he would isolate himself in the cave of Hira, right? Just the seclusion, just being in nature, being one with nature, and just reflecting, and the seclusion aspect is so beautiful. Even just like, I think you were mentioning at one time, I believe last time we were talking, is, the story of Sayyidina Musa, when he was in the river, when they were on the boat on the water with Sayyidina Khidr, and just like things happening in nature, just like the reflections that are coming from that. So I think it plays such a big role too, like even for, the creative folks that are out there, like we're just living in such a world now where we're just constantly glued to our desk, we're on our phone, we're on social media, where we don't take that time to just unplug and just go for a walk. Right, and just reflect on that tree. Look at that cloud. Wow, subhanAllah. Look at that shape. Things that we would typically do as if we were kids. Oh, look, Baba, that cloud reminds me of this car. or it looks like a butterfly, it looks like a rabbit, but just kind of being that reflective state, just going out in nature, looking at the trees, looking at the birds, listening to these sounds, right? Because I feel like at deep down, it just plays such a big role in being better at who we are, a sense of alignment, and then a sense of awe.
Mm-hmm.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created all of this. He knows what we're thinking. He knows everything. He's looking after the smallest creature like the ant, right? To these big cosmos, these planets that are moving in these galaxies. Like, it's just amazing, when you reflect on all that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that I think, especially like if you hit creative block, just go take a walk, go take a walk through the park, or just get away from your desk. Especially in this remote sort of post-COVID world, it's like everyone's confined to their desks and to their homes, and just go out and
experience the world.
Experience the world. You also just need to let things sort of simmer and percolate.
Yeah.
You need time to like do nothing, because there might be a problem that you're trying to work on and trying to crack, and you can't crack it, and just step away from that for a few moments. And when you come back to it, like you might approach it from a different perspective, or you might have that aha moment.
It's almost like letting your mind subconsciously do the work.
We were talking about beauty, and I think there's definitely something to be said about thinking about it from like a product design or a visual graphic design perspective. Definitely something to be said about how something looks and if it's visually appealing. But there's also an element of like, how functional is this? Is it confusing or not? And we were talking about Ihsan earlier, right? And about doing things, with excellence. And it's very easy to fall into a trap as a designer to just make something look very beautiful.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't function, it doesn't really, uphold that. Like if there's a gap in the user experience, or if it's just pretty but it doesn't make sense, like the language is confusing, or like the deeper stuff is not thought through. I don't think that's beautiful necessarily. Like I think sure, it's eye candy, but it's not beautiful work. One of my I often, look at other designers in the space and other thought leaders. And one of the people that I take inspiration from is Johnny Ive. And he was doing a fireside chat, or like a coffee side chat recently at a conference. And he was talking about the experience of, so he designed this cable sort of packaging, and he was talking about the experience of just opening that up, and how somebody feels when they're going through that experience of just unwrapping this cable thing. And what he was reflecting on was like, what he draws satisfaction from is that the person who's using that, or the person that's experiencing that, can tell that somebody has cared about this, and I love, how he phrases this. It's like, you can sense carelessness, right? Whether it's like, some product you've experienced, or just your interaction with someone, like whatever it is, but you can sense when something has been done with carelessness. And so because you can do that, you can also sense when there's care that's been put into it. I think that also speaks to, we were talking earlier about Ihsan and the excellence that, we were talking earlier about Ihsan and just doing things with that level of excellence, even if somebody else doesn't necessarily see this, but I'm also doing it for myself. And actually that was one of the things I want to mention, just reflecting on some of the things that I've been blessed and grateful to have been a part of in my journey as a designer. Just do things for yourself. and this is advice that I would give to whether you're, a new designer in the field or if you've been doing this for ages, do things for yourself. And really what I mean by yourself is like, do things for your soul, do things that, just like excite you or are for a higher purpose, and let that be it. And you'll feel like, and I think I can promise you'll feel a sense of barakah in that. There's been a number of projects that I've had the good fortune and, the blessing of being involved with. And, decades later, like I still feel like there's a barakah in my life through just having been involved in that. What did you do before? I mean, like obviously you had Sunan. I know that, but like this podcast is relatively new, right?
Podcast we started this year.
Yeah. So like, did you ever do like a video series before like this?
I hated videos.
Okay.
You could not get me in front of a camera. I've always been the guy that enjoyed being in the background. And with Sunan, it's like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you're running your own company agency, like you have to, it challenges you in many ways. Because like even alhamdulillah with Sunan, like Allah's been so generous. We have 20 people now on our team.
Oh, mashallah.
And I'm onboarding another 2 people this week from a performance side and then from a creative side. But yeah, like it forces you to step up. It forces you to be outside of your comfort zone. And it's almost like as an entrepreneur and as like the leader of Sunan, if you're feeling comfortable, something's wrong.
Yeah.
You can't feel comfortable for too long because it's like, whoa, I haven't had a difficult conversation this week. Something must be wrong. Because again, like you got to keep pushing yourself, keep challenging yourself. But yeah, just like even with videos, like I struggled with videos. You could not get me to get in front of a camera. And I just had to challenge myself. And it took me time. Like what I did is, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but at one point every night at the end of my day, family time, after everything, like before getting ready to bed, I would just turn on the camera, record, and just talk about my day. Hey, today's day 1. Today's, August 25th. I had a wonderful podcast with Umar Shahzad. We worked on this stuff. Alhamdulillah, we landed this client. Oh, today we lost this client. We worked on this fun stuff. This is something I'm excited. I'm looking forward to. It's like a quick 5-10 minute, but it kind of forced me just to get in front of a camera, just to get comfortable. Yeah. And I probably did that consistently for maybe a few months. Just every night, record it. I would upload it on YouTube as unlisted, and then just send it to like a few close people. Say like, "Hey, give me feedback." Right? And then over time, just you start getting comfortable. And it's like, all right, today I'm going to focus on my hand gesture. Like, how's my body language? How's my speed? Because like I have a tendency of just talking fast when I'm nervous. So it's like, all right, I'm going to slow down today. I'm going to watch the ums, right? I'm going to watch those little keywords that I say often. Yeah. But then, just go through the reps.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, like you said, growth happens outside your comfort zone.
Happens outside your comfort zone.
I wouldn't have been able to tell. I mean, you carry yourself like you've been doing this for years, mashallah.
All this is going through the reps. Like even just like you mentioned too, like for your space, like you're not designing as much as you used to. Right? Like even for me before Sunan, my background was never in design. Like I don't have any formal education in design, marketing, or anything. So as you would say, my foundation is weak. But like my background was like in IT consulting. So I grew up in the IT background. My undergrad was in IT information systems as an IT consultant. Then I did my master's. I did my MBA, specialized in information systems. And I was working full time for the government, so for Social Security, as like IT consultant. And alhamdulillah, I was like managing a team. I joined SSA right out of college. Actually, I was still in college, like my last semester, when I joined Social Security. And I was there for about 10 and a half years before I transitioned into Sunan. And Sunan, I started, this was like back in 2017. I want to say like November of 2017. And And the reason how I got into it is a very, very close friend of mine, Maltasam, from Al Medina Institute. He's like, Sajjad, you have this thing for design. Like, you should try it out, explore it. Like the Medina Institute logo, I made it back in like 2000, 2009, 2010 with the green dome and Al Medina on the bottom. And then just some of the designs, like we didn't have a marketing person. So it's like, Sajjad, go ahead, create the design for it. Like, all right, I don't know what I'm doing. I was using the wrong tools. I think I was using like InDesign to create a flyer. And then I learned Photoshop and then was playing around with Photoshop. But then I just kind of got comfortable with it. Like I started enjoying it a bit more because I saw it as like a means of communication. Like design is a tool to communicate, right? Because you're asking someone to take some sort of call to action or you're creating awareness, whatever you're doing, but it's a tool and it can become a very powerful tool to communicate. And like you see the industry moving one way, but it's like, well, how can we do it with intention? How can you do it with Ihsan? How can you do it more beautifully? And then long story short, like alhamdulillah, that started to grow. And then in 2018, I was like, all right, I think I'm ready. Let me put together a simple web page. I think I put it together in Wix. It was like a single landing page. It's like, all right, let's just push this out and see what happens. And alhamdulillah, after that, it's just things started to grow. Where I think in 2020, right before COVID, I made the transition to leave my full-time job at SSA. It was a very scary decision because you're leaving like a 6-figure salary to start this something that's like, I don't even know if it's going to work. And I've been here for 11 years. Let's see what happens. But alhamdulillah, Allah's been generous. Allah's been
alhamdulillah. I think like you touched on, I think experimentation and just trying different things, right? You never know like what's going to stick, what's going to resonate with you. Like, oh yeah, okay. And if it doesn't go anywhere like that, that's great. Cause then at least you've tried it. You've
tried it.
You experimented with it. You tried it. Okay. It wasn't for me, but in this case, that's great to hear.
And like one thing I always used to come back to, I think it was a quote by Steve, Bezos, where he said, when you're on your deathbed, you don't want to have that regret. Oh man, I wish I tried that. As you get older in life, you're like, man, I wish I tried. I wonder what would happen. Maybe I would fail, but at least I tried it. I know it wasn't worth it. It wasn't for me. But at least I gave it a shot.
Yeah.
And for me, like at Sunan, before transitioning out of Social Security into Sunan, I was like, well, I want to give it a shot. See what happens. Like you try to make sure you don't burn any bridges just in case you have to come back into the government.
Yeah.
But alhamdulillah, like I've worked with amazing people even at Social Security, still in touch with, most of the team that I was working with. This is now 6 years later, it's very beautiful.
Yeah.
And for me, again, it's like, what my intention, inshallah, what my goal for Sunan is, like, I want to create something that inshallah creates an impact. And for me, the goal is I don't want to be the only agency in the space. If through Sunan, I'm able to inspire other people, whether they might be designers, entrepreneurs, that, hey, you can serve the Islamic space, create an impact, inshallah, and create a legacy, and inshallah, make money doing it.
You were saying, I don't want to be the only agency in the space. And then
sorry. So for me, it's like the goal is like, I don't want to be the only agency in the space. Like I want us to be the tide that lifts all boats. I want to inspire the young entrepreneurs, the designers, the folks at whatever space they may be in, that you can still create an impact. You can have a livelihood. You can be successful and create that impact by serving Islamic brands and Islamic organizations. Like it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Right. And if I'm able to, inshallah, inspire organizations, people to go into this space and do that, create that impact, that's the ultimate Sadaqah Jariyah, inshallah.
Yeah. Yeah. Inshallah, you get there. Inshallah, there's a lot of khair that's in there and a lot of barakahs. You continue. What'd you say, 2017? So
2017. So 2017, I think this was like
8 years now.
Yeah. It's like when I started it like casually, just like, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Obviously that time I was playing the role of a designer. I was playing the role of a account manager. I was playing the role of everything. It was a solo business.
Yeah.
And then alhamdulillah, things slowly started to grow. We onboarded, I did what you were not supposed to do. I scripted a bunch of emails, put it into my MailChimp. Again, these were people that I knew that were in some sort of leadership capacity for Islamic brands. And then I sent out an email. And subhanAllah, what I tried doing was, I remember very clearly. So I put together this website. It took about 2 days. It was very, very bare bones. It was a single page website.
Mm-hmm.
And the menu is just, it scrolls to the appropriate sections. So I put together the website. Then I script probably 20, 30 email addresses of, okay, I know so-and-so, he's the executive director here. Or I know so-and-so, he's working at the school, Islamic school. I just put together this list. And then what I did is I timed it. I was like, all right, this email that goes out, this is the launch email. I'm going to time it because it was a Friday, it was Jummah. It's like, all right, I'm going to time it so we're in prayer. After the khutbah, we're in the 2 rakahs, the Jummah prayer. And I'm going to time it so it goes out at that time. And subhanAllah, I think after the email went out, probably within 2 hours, 3 hours, we had our first client.
Oh, nice.
Again, it was a very small project, but it was just like, again, doing things with intention, again, at the end of the day, realizing that this is all in Allah's hand.
Mm.
And the goal is to create that impact, about inspiring, but then also creating an impact by serving these organizations.
Mm.
And that's like one thing I tell our team all the time is like, look, guys, for example, we partnered with a organization last Ramadan, in 2024, that was building a masjid in New Zealand. And alhamdulillah, we helped them raise over $500,000 within like that 5 weeks period through ads, creative marketing strategy and everything. I was telling my team, like, guys, look, there's a good chance that you and I will never go to New Zealand. There's a good chance that we may never visit that masjid. But through the work that you guys did, every person that prays there, you Ado, you Arsalan, you Nisma are getting rewarded for it. And that's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
Because we can be successful, inshallah, in dunya. We're gonna get paid for it. We're gonna do amazing work. We're gonna feel good. But more importantly, it's gonna help continue to serve us through that Sadaqah Jariyah.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple months ago, we were in Amsterdam, actually, just a little town, maybe about an hour and a half outside of Amsterdam. We had our product leadership on site there, and we're just trying to plan, the sort of the coming year from a product perspective. But the place we stayed at, Fahm House, is they fundraise on LaunchGood. Oh. And that was beautiful. Like, you visit this place and there's some hand that you've played, or even if not me personally, like LaunchGood has played, and through association with LaunchGood, inshallah, that's also Sadaqah Jariyah.
Absolutely.
But you go there and then you see like, this is like, alhamdulillah, there was some role that we played in establishing this. There's been quite a few examples of those where it was beautiful to see when our team, we were in Bosnia and Sarajevo, and the last night our team was there. We had a team dinner, and we invited somebody from the community that we had a role to play in fundraising for them. There was a medical emergency that they fundraised on LaunchGood, and it's beautiful seeing the impact of your work in the community. I think that's one of the things that like just keeps me going as well. Whether it was the work I've done at LaunchGood, whether it's stuff that I've done before, like I'm I've traveled to different cities, and I've seen like books that I've typeset on the bookshelf, and I go, alhamdulillah, like I had some role to play in that, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier about doing things, for yourself or for your soul or for Allah. And when I say for yourself, I don't mean it from like a worldly perspective of, trying to get rich off of this. And, but doing it for yourself, meaning like, how is this going to benefit me in the akhirah? Right. Yeah. When I'm 6 feet under, talking about Sadaqah Jariyah and like this ongoing charity, through my talents, through the skill sets that I've been blessed with, I've been able to leave something behind that benefits the community afterwards.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. But Sajjad, you were talking earlier about, your journey with Sunan and just experimenting with things. And as you were talking, I'm thinking back to even my early days with the web, and when I was kind of starting out and getting familiar with like the early web. I don't know, like if you're familiar with like GeoCities, was it GeoCities and like
Yeah.
other early like web tools
I,
and all the,
I
you
made a
know,
website on GeoCities like hundreds of years
yeah,
long.
yeah.
I,
And
I,
like the, animated GIFs, like the bright
yes.
text art, word art and text art
Yeah.
and all that stuff. Um, but I experimented with that and was like, okay, this is interesting, and we had like at that time, I'm sure it was very expensive, but like just, a very old computer, dial up internet, um, and just experimenting,
Yeah.
and playing around. And obviously I'm a kid. I don't have the responsibilities or like the burden of adulthood and
Exactly.
all the responsibilities that come with that. So a ton of free time on my hand, but just playing around with that, I think that gave me a further love for like this
Mm.
creative expression. But even that said, like years later when I was in design school, I didn't take very many digital classes and like,
Mhm.
didn't get into, the Flash
Yeah.
courses and the web courses. I was like, okay, I'm interested in like bookbinding. I think that course was
Mm.
probably, full, so I didn't get a chance to take that, but like working with type and working
Yeah.
with print. And I was like, that's all I'm going to do. When I graduate, like I'm just going to focus on print-based design. And I
Yeah.
did do that actually. Not immediately after, but I was freelancing for, I think about 4 years. And I did do a lot of like typesetting long documents and, brochures and that kind of stuff. But I graduated, and the first job I got, my manager comes to me and he's like, okay, we're going to redesign our website, and you're going to redesign it and you're going to build it. And I had experience like, all those years ago from GeoCities and even coding. Like I was comfortable with coding, HTML, CSS, just the basic stuff. But I was like, oh man, like I don't, now it's like I'm in a professional
Now
setting
it's
and
real.
I have like, I can't do this, but okay, I'm going to take that challenge on.
Yeah.
And, I coded that website in, I think it was a PC. I'm a Mac guy. Nothing against PCs. Like I'm just comfortable in that space.
Yeah.
But we were using Notepad because the organization just couldn't afford Dreamweaver at the time because
Mm.
it was a huge expense.
Yeah.
So I built this website in Notepad using tables, um, and that's how like in a professional setting. That's how I learned, right? So what that really taught me, and multiple other experiences, down the road, it's like, okay, when you're given that opportunity to go outside of your comfort zone and there's some sort of a challenge,
Yeah.
how do you respond to that? How do you take that up?
Absolutely.
You can be like, okay, no, this is not my thing. I'm going to turn it down. Or, you can give it your best shot.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, okay, what's the worst that can happen? Okay, maybe it won't work out, but at least you've tried it.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
and, only from there, like, yes, I did continue doing a lot of print-based design and typesetting and all that kind of stuff. But then I got deeper into web.
Mm.
And again, years later, I worked for a client, a Muslim organization, did their website, and I taught myself responsive design.
Mm.
And, just using the tools that were available, not only designing, but then also actually building the responsive
Yeah.
website,
Absolutely.
which then led to more web work and, a lot of other Muslim community organizations or individual scholars having the opportunity to work with them and build their, online presence. And that, came in handy years down when, now I'm at LaunchGood and
Exactly.
there's connections you've built over time. And,
Absolutely.
you never know, like, not that you do that from sort of a selfish, ulterior motive, but that networking that you build over the years you never know where that's going to come in,
Exactly.
handy down the line. And
Absolutely.
the people you meet along the way and how they've shaped your journey as well, and the things that you've learned either through them or working with them, and the good experiences and the bad experiences.
It's a big role.
It all shapes you.
Absolutely. And it's so beautiful because it's like as you're going through that journey of life, where you're being punched here and you're being shoved over here, it's like you don't realize, but everything is so connected. We just don't have that hindsight at the moment, but years later, like now, when you look back at life, you're like, oh yes, when I was building that website in Notepad, it kind of helped shape me in terms of the work that I'm doing now. Like it played a role, going through that exercise. And again, I think it's even from a design standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, from business standpoint, like everything you go through, inshallah, shapes you to be better. And everything works out, like long-term, just relationships that you have. Again, as long as you're doing things with the right intention, right? Like the goal isn't to get something out of this relationship because from a egotistic or nafsi standpoint, but it's like, oh, like let's connect. Let's do good work. Let's have a conversation. See where it goes. It may not go anywhere, or very well, it may help me. From learning to grow and learning new things. I mean, Allah works in amazing ways, and it's just being very open to that.
It's tough though, when you're in that moment, it's incredibly tough.
It's very hard.
I've gone through personal, moments where, in my life where you're like in that moment and you're questioning, like, what's the wisdom?
Yeah.
And you can't see it. And that's incredibly tough.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in that moment, to be able to sort of think rationally and think, okay, this is like the wisdom in this. I mean, we can't see the wisdom in it, but years down the line, yes, if you have the benefit of that sort of hindsight and you can reflect back like, okay, this is what this experience taught me, or this is how it shaped me to be what I am, or but it is very tough. And I mean, like, this is not my area of expertise, but I know like you've had people like Omar from Ruh on, and just the work that they're doing with helping the community when it comes to challenges like that of faith or so I don't know, maybe it's kind of a shout out. I know you had him on the podcast, so if anyone's listening to this, go back and listen to that one as well. There's a lot of great organizations just doing amazing work, and a lot of unsung heroes, I think.
Definitely.
And it's just we talked a little bit before about creative block and just getting out and going for a walk. I think there's something that I personally would love to do. I don't do enough of. It's like get involved in the community. Go and like volunteer at a shelter, or go and volunteer, in Ramadan or year round, and distribute food, or just do something that gets you involved in the community. Really, our organizations need it, right? Like, mashallah, people operating with a lot of ihsan and just goodwill. They could definitely use that help as well.
What organization is not looking for volunteers, especially good volunteers? Every organization is looking for it. And Omar, just to kind of mention to like the earlier point that you talked about, like, as you're going through those difficult moments in life, it's so easy to feel like and question, like, why is this happening to me? And personally, like, I've gone through that struggle often. Like when you're going through a challenge in life, it feels like your chest is closing. It's like, oh my God, like, what's happening? Why is this happening? And many times it's not one challenge that happens. It's when you get hit. When it rains, it pours. And I think for me, like, one thing that I always try to remind myself and do is, you reflect back on these, because with every challenge that comes, the beauty is there's always an end. And it's reflecting on that. Okay, well, I just dealt with this challenge, for example, why did this happen? Like just reflecting on it, like what did I learn from this? How did I respond? And, a very, very wonderful friend of mine, he always used to remind me, it's like, with every constriction comes an expansion.
Yeah. With hardship, there's ease, right? There's
as you're going through that hardship, there will be ease because Allah doesn't burden someone with more than that they can bear.
Yeah.
So the fact that, that I'm going through this, there's infinite wisdom from Allah that, I can handle it. So, hey, there's that assurance. And again, these are just reminders you have to give yourself because as you're going through it, it's very easy to go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And just like this negative thought and just dissonance. It's very easy to do that. And we all do it. No one here is perfect.
Yeah.
Right. And it can lead to just thoughts that maybe just not the best thoughts that you're having. But it's just reminding yourself that, okay, I'm going through this. There's infinite wisdom, inshallah, that I can handle this. And
this is where the I think that circle of friends plays a huge role, right? Or friends, family, like your network, that close group of maybe 5 or so people that you have,
absolutely,
that can help you in that situation.
Absolutely.
And then I think also having certain principles. Again, a lot of this is easier said than done, and but having certain principles and values that you're grounded in, so that when you encounter that situation, whatever it may be, there's something that you can hold on to.
Absolutely. And one thing I tell myself, I try to remind myself all the time is like, well, listen, at the end of the day, buddy, this is a Jannah. You're going to go through challenges in life, and the goal is it's going to help you become better. And again, stay grounded in who you are, stay grounded in your foundations, your fundamentals, right? Whether it's from a career standpoint, from a creative standpoint, or just personal, stay grounded in your fundamentals, your foundation, and inshallah, everything is going to work out. Right. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. So Umar, one of the things that we've seen over like the past, I would say almost a year and a half, 2 years is just the scale of AI and how fast it's rapidly grown. And it's become almost like a core element in everything we do. Like I myself, I'm on ChatGPT probably hours a week, just researching and learning and feeding it prompts and so many. I mean, there's so many of these AI tools now, from voiceover to video production to text-based interactions with all these LLMs. Let me start with, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on AI and where it's going?
Before we get into that, I'm just, like you said earlier, like I think this is something that's been out of my comfort zone, and so I've been overthinking it, like you said earlier. But that made me reflect on. We were with our team in Bradford a few weeks ago, and one of the team bonding activities that we did was archery. Like amazing experience, and we have the instructor, and he's teaching us about the process and your stance and how even how you're supposed to pass the bow and receive the bow, and reducing variables and things like that. And he's teaching, we were in different groups. So it was about I think 24 of us, and, you're standing at a distance from your target, and, you've obviously in that workshop, you've learned the process, and, you're trying to hit the target. And quite a few of us, including myself, we're shooting shooting the arrows, and we weren't necessarily hitting the target. It would go above or below, or off to the side, and off in the distance. And before the lesson wrapped up, he was like, "Okay, now you're going to do it, and you're going to close your eyes before you release." And and so he would give the sort of verbal commands, and tell you to get in the right posture, and pull, and then you're supposed to close your eyes before you release. And so many of us hit the target.
Wow.
And we had 3 arrows, and so every many of us, all 3, we were able to hit the target. Now it's a big target, it's not a small one, but the reflection on that is like, okay, once you've understood the process and you've undertaken that, and the outcome is not in your control, right? The outcome is with Allah. But your role is to, learn that process, do the process. And if you get those things right, then you can close your eyes and just release, and, you don't have to overthink it.
Absolutely.
And yeah, like it was just such a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we were talking about, anyways, anything you want to kind of go off of that, and we can move on to AI.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very beautiful reflection, and it kind of it ties back to so many things you mentioned, Omar. Like A is building that foundation, right? Just like in your case, he instructed stance, motion, how you draw the arrow. I don't even know all these things, but there's a process
Exactly
to archery.
Yeah.
Right? Same way from a design standpoint or anything that we do in life, having that foundation of knowing what to do is very, very important. And trust the process. Just like you said, like even at LaunchGood, you have systems in place, right? The systems in place is there to help us get better at what we do.
Yeah.
And then inshallah, you get to a point where, you can shoot that arrow with your eyes closed.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to touch on the exact same thing, like, going back to the systems that you can put in place so that when that need arises, or like when you have to spring into action, you don't have to, worry about things not, like the process not being there.
And you just add another layer to it. Imagine building heart-centered systems. That's the win-win.
Yeah. I'll plug my friend Peter Gould's book here if anyone hasn't read it. Heart-centered design. He runs a course as well. I took that in the first year that he offered it. It's something that actually I'm very interested in applying to LaunchGood and applying to like our design playbook at LaunchGood and how we approach design. So definitely read it, check it out if you haven't.
Awesome. Absolutely. Chief, so the other thing I wanted to kind of briefly talk about was AI. And as we've seen over the past 2.5, 3 years now, AI's taken the center stage at everything that's done, right? From running organizations to strategy to consultation to figuring out puzzles to everything. Like it's become a cornerstone and bedrock at everything that's done. And AI has gotten so good in different things, from ChatGPT, what ChatGPT can do, but obviously more models, from voiceovers to video creation to so many amazing and awesome things that it can do now. What are your thoughts, Umar, on AI and where this is going?
I have a lot of thoughts. I'm not sure where this is going, where like all of this is going really. I use AI tools all the time. I think I use ChatGPT on a daily basis. Like it's like a second brain, or just to be able to think through ideas and leverage like this basically global almost brain. This bank of knowledge. Other AI tools, in the creative process we've used and I use. So there's we were talking earlier about experimentation. And with all these tools and like what you can do, I think it's a very interesting time to be able to have these tools and be able to experiment with them, because I almost feel like we've almost entered a new age, this age of AI. And, like my generation, I think, you're probably in the same generation. Like we grew up as the internet became a thing. We grew up as computers became more prevalent, and the social media and all this stuff. And I really feel like we've almost entered a new age. What AI can make possible is amazing. It's astounding. It's maybe a little bit scary at times. We use it to like prototype concepts, and something that might take a long time to build a prototype, to test an idea. Now you can do it in minutes.
Exactly.
And I do think we need to be familiar with those tools. We need to learn how to use them and use them. But I do have like questions or conflicting feelings about where this is all going, and some of the, especially on the ethical side. I'm a creative, it very easy for me to prompt something or even take artwork, feed it into one of these tools and create a style that I can then completely basically rip off or
Yeah.
Reuse another artist's style. So from a creative perspective, ethical concerns are there. I think also, so yeah, there's the creative ethical side. Even like the impact of AI on the environment, like the ethical questions from that perspective of like how much energy and like what goes into running these servers and like keeping them cool, and um, it's having a huge impact, right?
Yeah. I think another big one too, Omar, that you're kind of mentioning is also the ethics and the complexities around disinformation. Especially with everything that's happening right now in Gaza and around the world, it's so easy to create something in AI that meets your agenda.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're saying, oh, no, this isn't happening, that's not true, here, look at this video. Right. And you're showing everyone's happy and everyone's getting food and whatever information agenda that you're trying to push out. It's so easy to create that now through AI, where back in the days you would have to kind of stage a lot of that acting and video and such. It was a lot harder.
Yeah.
And especially now with social media, you can easily create something that's not true, that's not correct, and get millions and millions of eyes on it in a matter of minutes. Right. So there's always obviously the ethics around that. And, me as a recipient, how do I pick up on it? Because now it's getting so good. First, you could tell, like you saw this big wave coming. There's a video, but no one's moving. Everything's there. Oh, something's wrong here. Or you could find some sort of glitch. Oh, that guy has fingers.
Will Smith eating spaghetti. Yeah.
There's all these clips.
Yeah.
But now it's like, man, that's getting really good.
Yeah.
Right. And just the whole ethics around that, I think, is something that is definitely concerning. And I think it's be interesting to see what happens around that.
I think that's probably my bigger ethical concern, the biggest of them. Yes, from a creative perspective, if it's potentially putting creatives out of work, that's something that hits close to me. The environmental impact, but this disinformation, that's a huge concern, because you can't trust what your eyes are seeing, what your ears are hearing anymore. Like we had the early stages with that Will Smith eating spaghetti, and it, obviously, what was like, it was fake, it was humorous, like, but now, like, Sajjad, if I told your viewers or your listeners that this whole podcast was just an AI avatar of me, it's actually believable now.
Yeah.
Right. Like the tech has gotten so advanced where even like the imperfections in the speech and all that kind of stuff, like it can replicate that now.
Much better now. Absolutely.
And what does that mean for, I think the long-term impact of that hasn't really been, we haven't had it around long enough to be able to understand that long-term impact. I think people are talking about it. There is a voice that's speaking up about this, but I don't think it's loud enough, or it is not getting enough of that spotlight. Because like you used to worry about what like the next generation is going to grow up with. What are they going to deal with? Like the way we grew up with the internet and computers, like they're growing up in this age of AI, right? But it's not just my kids and the future generations that you have to train and worry about, but like my parents' generation and the older generation, that now like you can have a video that looks like a legitimate news report, or you can create audio that sounds very real, and you can have that forwarded and blasted to millions on WhatsApp, and it then starts informing personal beliefs, like political ideologies, all based on what's not real. Right. And I think, especially as Muslims, like, we like, I'm not trying to get all, apocalyptic and all that, but like we have this in our tradition of,
Absolutely.
the end times and the Antichrist. And, um,
Yeah.
like, again, I'm not trying to sound like an alarmist, or I'm not trying to sound old school. I think there's definitely a use
Yeah.
case for these tools.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to that blurring of lines between what's real and what's actually fake, um, that I think is a huge red flag for me.
Yeah.
We have a policy at LaunchGood to not use AI to represent like a real life crisis.
Mm.
If it's in video or photography, unfortunately, the reality of the world is that those crises exist, and they're already, um, you know, like you don't need to create imagery to communicate the the heaviness
Severity of
of
what's
those
happening.
crises, right?
Yeah.
So we have a policy of not using that, but we also, like, we've introduced an AI task force when it comes to our processes and and our workflows. How can we make those more efficient?
Mhm.
So I definitely think there's a use case here.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
I was
Absolutely.
talking with a colleague not too long ago. Like, the printing press came out, and calligraphers were worried about what this means for them and their work. Um, the guns were introduced, and what that meant for archery, or the swordsman. Um, so it this is new, right? There's a lot of questions about
Yeah.
what this means for the creative fields, for like tech. Um, I don't think it's something that we can and should ignore, but it
Absolutely.
is something that, like, where is all of this going? What is it leading to? Um, I think we need to think further ahead. Um,
Definitely. Definitely.
mobile, like, mobile devices have been around a long enough time that we can now see the impact of being chronically online, and doom scrolling, and perceptions of self-worth, and, like, your image and all that kind of stuff. Like, now we can see the impact of that.
Mm.
um, I don't think these
Yeah.
tools have been around long enough to truly
Definitely.
understand, like, the psychological impact
Yeah.
that all this will have.
That's true. And inshallah, let's see, time shall tell. And I think as individuals using these tools, we just have to be mindful of its impact. And again, going back to doing things with ihsan, how can I leverage these AI tools to do things with intention? Am
Mm.
I leveraging it for the right reason, or am I leveraging it to force someone to take an action that I want them to take?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Am I misusing it?
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to see too, because like I know, just on a personal note, like my son right now, he's entering in 6th grade. And one of the things that he did over the summer was like, he's like, Bob, I want to start a business. I was like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, what do you want to do? He's like, I don't know. Let me talk to ChatGPT. Let me figure
Mm-hmm.
it out.
Yeah.
So he's like prompting and going, just having a conversation. And I mean, he put together these, based on whatever information he fed it, it recommended you should create this calm box. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a box that you would get. You would open it, and it has all these different trinkets and things that helps you calm,
Mm-hmm.
become more calm as a person. And I was just laughing. I was like, he went through this entire exercise from inception to production to buying all the things and packaging it together and making sales. But it's actually very interesting, like just watching him go through that entire process. Like, all right, well, how do I sell a box? Let me ask ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's telling him like, how do you sell? How do you create sales? Right. Well, or how do I figure out like the unit cost of everything? Like all this entire exercise he went through utilizing these AI tools. So it's very interesting. It's very funny to see,
Yeah.
like how it plays out. But yeah, again, this is the age that our kids are growing it up on.
Yeah.
We're
Let me know when it goes up on sale. I'd love to order one.
absolutely, absolutely. So inshallah, and I think as again as Muslims and Muslim communities and entrepreneurs and designers, again, it's about leveraging these tools, but again, making sure that we're doing it with intention.
Mm.
We're doing it with ihsan. We're doing it with excellence, and we're iterating.
Yeah, and I think the earlier point I had about principles and values,
Yeah,
right? Like, what are our principles that guide the way we use these tools?
absolutely.
I know there's conversations and there's people that are talking about frameworks and like guidelines around ethical AI usage, and this is actually where what I wanted to kind of draw a connection to was this Gaza effect that similarly there's outside of the Muslim community you're seeing a lot of allies and support for people who are standing up against the genocide and
Yeah,
in support of Palestinians. Um, and I'm not trying to draw an immediate connection or like trying to compare the two, but in terms of principles and values, this is where I think we as a Muslim community can and should look outside of the community as well, because you have thought leaders in other big tech companies, other industries that align with our values or our principles on things like ethical AI usage and the benefits, but then also the harms and the things that we should look out for.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's beautifully said. And again, it's about creating that coalition, working together with, like you said, heart-minded individuals,
Like-hearted, yeah.
like-hearted individuals, and create that bigger impact, inshallah. Omar, the other thing I wanted to ask, inshallah, I've kind of transitioned into is, alhamdulillah, you've been in this space now for many, many years. You've worked with quite a bit of organizations in your own personal space, but then also even, alhamdulillah, in the LaunchGood space that you're in now, leading the design effort. What is an advice that you would give to someone who is starting their journey now within that creative space?
I think really spend some time focusing on the foundations. Learn your craft, and your whole life will be an opportunity to continue learning and perfecting that craft. But really take some time to, I think, understand some of the foundations of what, um, you know, the principles, the values of like good design. Um, that's one thing. The other is really like stay hungry, stay, keep that drive to learn and experiment and get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
My own experiences have taught me that, like when I've faced those situations where, there's something I don't know at all, or I'm not familiar with, and I'm going to step up to that challenge. Like I've been surprised of how I've developed as an individual,
Yeah.
so do that. The other is it's a small world, like, especially if you're a Muslim, you're a creative, it's a very small world. Um, the power of networking and building that close circle of friends or that network, you never know where that's going to lead to down the line. People that you get to know early on in your career may not have an immediate quote unquote benefit to you, whether it's like helping you land a job or something, but down the line, years down the line, like you never know when those networks come in handy. But the biggest thing I think is, especially if you're younger in your career, I think you may have the benefit of having more time on your hands to experiment, to try different things. You may want to try freelancing and experiment with that. That might not be your thing. You have to run a business in addition to doing the creative work. That might be your thing. You might go on to start another agency or another studio that then employs people, or you might find joy and just your personal fulfillment working within a team and working with others. You might find that you're drawn to one particular creative outlet or expression, and it's not necessarily what you set out to do. So especially if you're younger in your career, I think experiment with like different tools that are available to you, different creative expressions, different, even design adjacent industries. We've had people come into design, like on my team, that have come in from like architecture and other, behavioral psychology and all sorts of different fields. And, they gave that a go, and eventually they found their way into design.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to make assumptions for anyone, but if you don't have the responsibility of, being married or having kids, you may have other responsibilities, but you might also have a lot more time to stay up and like learn, how to use the latest tools, or enroll in a boot camp, or, go and take a course that requires you to be somewhere elsewhere in the world. We've had a designer that went off to Barcelona and like, she did a master's there. Like if you have that flexibility and that ability to do that with your life, then don't let those opportunities pass up. You never know where that's gonna take you.
Absolutely. And if I may just add to that too, is like, I think some of the additional beautiful things to add to what you're saying is give to your network. As you start building that network, inshallah, don't be a taker, be a giver. Give to your network. If you see two people in your network that could benefit from each other's company, based on whatever needs or issues that they might be struggling with, and someone you think could have the answers for it, connect them with no expectation, right? Be a giver. And inshallah, the more you give, the more it's going to come back to you in the most beautiful of ways, in times where you may not even know when you need it the most.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And the other thing I would add to that too is like, especially as folks that are kind of starting off in this space, whether it's from a design standpoint, entrepreneurship, marketing, is learn skill stacking. Because again, what makes you unique is the multitude of skills that you have. So if you are a public speaker, right? Imagine a public speaker that's great with design and can create visually compelling presentations that now stacked with their performance in terms of delivering presentations and public speaking, it's a win-win, right? All right, what else can I stack with that skill? Right, so being able to stack your skills, inshallah, I think can help with that as well, inshallah. Umar, this was a wonderful conversation. Really enjoyed spending this beautiful time with you, learning so much from you, picking your brains. May Allah continue to put barakah in everything that you're doing, Umar, and allow it to scale, inshallah, beyond your wildest dreams, inshallah. And again, may Allah put barakah in all the amazing work that you're doing at LaunchGood and outside of LaunchGood, and allow that to scale, inshallah, for all these different campaigns and individuals that you've touched from around the globe in whatever capacity. Inshallah is a huge Sadaqah Jariyah for you, for the team at LaunchGood, and everyone that's involved, inshallah. Inshallah. Thank you so much, Umar, for joining us. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much, Sajjad. Wa alaikum assalam.